So I'm hoping that the audio quality in this video is going to be good enough, because I'm using this lapel mic, as you can see. If I actually put it on my lapel, then the sound isn't as good. I'm pretty sure it doesn't sound as good here as if I actually use it here, so I'm going to try and keep it here. But for now, I wanted to do this video because I get occasionally asked, what is a Golf R32 actually like to live with? Is it any good in the long run? What's the reliability like? What's the fuel economy like? Because, I mean, let's face it, if you are looking at a Mk5 Golf or even any Golf, a GTI is usually a lot cheaper. Mine doesn't have any performance upgrades. Mine comes with wingback seats, which are very sought after for the R32. They're about $1,000 each if you want to buy them off the Golf market. It has, what else? It's got a conversion to a touchscreen display, which was done by the owner in Japan, because this is a Japanese import. One owner in Japan. I'm the only owner it's had in the UK, apart from the dealer owner, obviously. And aside from that, yeah, it's just got a back box delete, a muffler delete. The reason why I went for a muffler delete instead of something like a Miltech is because I wanted a much deeper sound. The Miltech's very high-pitched and very raspy. And I mean, these VR6 engines sound absolutely fantastic. Performance-wise, completely untouched. So 250 brake. Mine's got 78,000 miles on the clock. So pretty reasonable. What's that, like 110, 120,000 kilometers, something like that. So as far as Golf R32s go, not particularly high at all. My first piece of advice on long-term Golf R32 ownership is to make sure that you get one with the lowest mileage and the least amount of owners you can. That's always a good sign, because it means even that it's been loved. Look for receipts, look for servicing. This one had a major service with everything, including the Haldex and everything, done right before I bought it at a cost of about £750. So again, servicing, that's actually not too bad to get everything done on a major service for what is a high performance car at the end of the day. These came with the option of a manual or a DSG. As you can kind of tell, the one that I've got is a DSG. One of the points I want to make about long-term ownership is actually about that DSG. It's a fantastic gearbox as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's possibly my favorite automatic that I've used, because technically it's not a conventional automatic, it's more like an automated manual in some ways. But it's a fantastic gearbox, I absolutely love it. It doesn't hesitate too much. You drop it into sport mode and the character of the car instantly completely changes, which is wonderful to work with. The only problem, and I mean the only problem with the gearbox, has nothing to do with it being a DSG, and honestly, it needs a 7th gear, and that's it. If this car had a 7-speed instead of a 6-speed, the gearbox would be legitimately perfect, because it's only on motorways that you ever notice it. Because this thing, if you leave it in drive, so like full auto mode, this thing will be up in 6th gear by the time you're doing 35, 40 miles an hour. And that's great for fuel economy. We'll get to the fuel economy in a second, because that's another common question. But on a motorway, it really does desperately need a 7th gear. And you might be able to drop a newer gearbox in it. I'm not sure if the newer Golfs had that or not. I'm sure by this point they probably do. But on the motorway, this actually cruises at a higher RPM than my Maseratis did.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a D'Agostini Ford GT40.
Now, as many of you know, I don't typically work with sponsors here on the channel, and the reason why is simple. Regardless of how lucrative the offers sometimes are, if they don't make sense to my audience, I just don't do them. This is an exception, because D'Agostini, a company who's been around since the late 50s and made a ton of these collectible kits, offered me the chance to do their 1/8 scale Ford GT40 in possibly the most iconic racing livery of all time, Golf colours. Now, as you can tell, it's a pretty big model. In fact, it's 1/8 scale. And what that means in practice is a nearly 2-foot long model, 51 centimetres long, weighing in at 8 kilos, about 17.5 pounds for our American friends, with working lights and sounds as well. And as you move forward with the kit, not only did they show you how to build it, but they also get into the history of the car. History such as how it got started with Lola's involvement. And naturally, instructions on how to build the kit. Kind of important. And I even asked them if they would be okay with me building this kit on a month-to-month basis here on the channel, and they said yes. So if you were to get the GT40, you can actually build it along with me. Another thing that I love about these kits is that if you check out the online prices of fully built ones, they're something of an investment anyway. So not only are they great for a collector and a hobbyist, but you can potentially make your money back many times over once they are fully made. And it's a much more affordable investment than, well, an actual GT40. If then you would like to check out this model, you can use a promo code, which they've kindly sent me here, and of course click the link right below this video to jump over to their website and check out all of the additional bonus features, depending on how you choose to pay and what kind of bundle you go for. And with that being said, special thanks to D'Agostini for reaching out.
They used to cruise at 70 miles an hour at like 2,500 RPM. This cruises at more like 3,000 RPM or thereabouts. That's very high for a cruising speed. You may as well have it in sport mode at that point, because you really are, I mean, that's really high for a cruising speed. And the reason why is obvious. It's not a cruiser's car, it's not a commuter car, it's a high-performance hot hatch. It's designed for fun, it's designed for speed, it feels like a little rally car for the road, all of the above. But then there are some contradictions to that. So for example, it has cruise control. It has the option of the DSG with, drive mode, so you don't have to change gear. So it's not an unflinchingly hardcore car. It's not a Megane R26 or a Focus RS that's totally about the performance. It does have some ease of life stuff, and that's one of the reasons why I believe the R32 was actually ahead of its time. If you look at hot hatches now, many of them are very similar to what this was doing back in 2006. And it holds up really well. The engine gives it so much character. It's absolutely wonderful. And the engine, in the case of this car, really is the star of the show. It's an absolutely fantastic engine. And it's the main reason why I got this one over a GTI. So let's get to the engine. Fuel economy first of all. You'll hear wildly different things about these. If you modify them, of course, it's going to drop like a stone, because it is, at the end of the day, a big engine for a hot hatch. It's a 3.2 litre V6. 250 horsepower, I believe 240 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. Very lumpy engine, sounds great. As I said before about the R32, I believe it's like the muscle car of hot hatches, probably why I love it so much. In terms of economy, though, it really does depend on how you drive it. If you track day one of these things in sport mode, you can get it down to single figures, from what I've heard from some people. For me personally, I drive this about 3 or 4 times a week, on a 40-mile round trip at around 40 or 50 miles an hour. It's actually the trip that I'm making right now as I record this. Averaging those kind of distances and speeds, I'm returning an average of about 34 miles per gallon, 33.6 according to the dash. That's remarkably good for an engine that big. And if you look up fuel receipts, it seems to me that it might actually be even better than that. So if you want to check my math, with current fuel prices in the UK, I tend to put about £30 a time into this thing, and that gives me 3 of those weekly trips to the destination and back. I'd say that's pretty damn good for a 3.2 litre engine. In terms of performance, there is a critique which I have seen from some people who have GTIs who have then gone to having an R32. And that is the critique that I've heard, that they find the GTI to be more responsive, or feels like the GTI has more tuning potential compared to this. I would say that if you're looking to get the best performance out of an engine, rather than just stock, if you are looking to tune the car, in other words, then you are better off getting the GTI, because even like a Mk5 GTI, they really are responsive to tuning. You can get them up around 400 horses pretty easy. So if you're looking purely to tune it and you have no intention to leave it stock, then go for a GTI. That'd be the car for you. You can get those with manual and DSG as well, so you've still got the option. This is a car for people who don't need to tune it. Like for me, I don't need more than 250 horsepower. The one I drove with 350 was very nice, but I don't need 350. That's why I've never tuned mine. I love the 250 horsepower. Occasionally, it might feel a little bit sluggish against like a modern hot hatch. Don't take on like a Mercedes A45 AMG or something with it. But I don't find it to be lacking in performance. The only reason why I want to change it is because I'm looking to get a car now which is physically larger and has a much larger engine, because, of course, my second car, for those who follow the channel, is a classic American car. And that's really given me the, it's bitten me with the bug, and I want a muscle car as my daily, so I'm getting like a modern muscle car. But I think the Golf is one of those cars that I'm probably going to miss, because it really is fantastic. In terms of reliability, it really does all depend on what kind of one you get. If you get a car that's been loved, it will show. If you get a car that's got over 100,000 miles with modifications from the UK, from a young owner, chances are that'll show as well. You will feel the difference, and they can be expensive to fix stuff on if you have to. So absolutely buy one that's been treated like what it is, which is a unicorn, a high-performance unicorn car. Focus RSs, Clio V6s. In terms of space, it's actually legitimately fantastic. I put a full-size exercise bike in the back that I picked up. All I had to do was drop the rear seats. And I was thinking back when I had the Touareg has more standard boot space. But if I were putting that same exercise bike into the Touareg, I would have still had to put the seats down. So it's actually really not that bad for space if you compare the two on a one-for-one or one-to-one basis. So yeah, ultimately, space is great. Mine's the 5-door, 4-door really, 4-door with a hatch. Space is great. Nobody's cramped in the back. The boot space is, I will say, fairly minimal. So if you need to transport a lot of things, it might be an issue. But for most of us, for shopping with me, I've never really wanted for it. You can always put stuff on the back seat. And yeah, ultimately, I think that's it for my thoughts. It's a fantastic car. And it goes without saying that, of course, I'd recommend getting an R32.